Good morning, all, and happy Christmas, especially if you're only doing this on catch up. But obviously, to everyone in the room, if you listen to this on Christmas Day, then kudos to you. Who doesn't want to listen to the Social Housing Roundtable on Christmas? I was talking to a friend the other day who was trying to find
Oh, look,
a very old episode of me
Sorry,
from
my
the old
jumper. Please don't
2000
have my jumper.
that I was on. And unfortunately, all they could find online is the Social Housing Roundtable. So I was quite relieved that apparently I've managed to ban that into the depths of beyond. So, anywho, a massive good morning to you all. Welcome from the Social Housing Roundtable, the wrap up edition for 2025. I'm joined by our head of partnerships, Elaine Middleton, who will do intros in just a moment. But basically, a huge, huge welcome to you all. Apologies, I've just seen the very festive hat being worn by Maurice Williams. If you haven't seen it, please do. It is quite something. That is. I don't know what it is, but it's terrifying. So thank you very much for that, Mo. That is brilliant. So I'm actually going to try and do slides, which the irony being is I give everybody, each week we do the test and we make sure it all works. I'm like, it ain't that hard, it ain't that hard. And then I have to do it and I've got to try and remember how it all works. So I'm going to try and find me buttons. So give me just a second. It should be, hopefully, that one with any luck. And I think we're sharing. No one's telling me different. So Elaine's nodding. So I think we're in. Fantastic. So a huge, huge welcome, as I say, to the wrap up for 2025. This is coming from myself and Elaine today. And thank you to everybody for all of your support throughout this year. It genuinely has been amazing for us. So the key stats of 2025 start off with stats for you mathematics fans out there or fans of Countdown, I don't know. So we've done 50 online roundtables. This is number 50 this year, which is apparently last year we did 53. So apologies for slacking. But yeah, nearly one a week this year, which has been amazing. 1,700 of you have attended from more than 250 businesses. Obviously, I've not included every landlord that every tenant has come from within that, but a huge, huge thank you there. We do it with the data that we can possibly get our hands on. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean we have all of the data, but Ted, who is with us today, you have attended more than anybody else this year. I think you've done something like 39 of them. So a massive, massive thank you to you for your support this year and for attending so many. We've had 4,600 followers of our LinkedIn group now and over 2,000 new subscribers to the newsletter. So that's been absolutely wonderful to read and see and follow as we've continued throughout the year. Between Elaine and I, we've spoken out or chaired 23 different conferences and events on top of doing the 50 roundtables. So yeah, if we do go quiet for the next 3 weeks, please don't be surprised. It's just that there's been an awful lot of these. So, but amazing to have been invited to do so many. We've had 57 different speakers this year across our 50 roundtables, which has been amazing. It's been, I think it was something like 50-50 or 45-55 in terms of a male-female gender split, which has been brilliant. But we're always looking to do more with our EDI. And now I'm going to bring on very quickly. I wasn't aware it's going to jump quite so quickly to this next page. And Elaine will hate this because her face is so large on this screen. But for me, it brings utter joy. So Elaine, I'll pass over to you to, I guess, share a little bit about yourself, but also your contribution to the roundtable this year and how that's kind of really evolved and shaped. Because this year, I don't think it's minimal to say that we wouldn't have got everything done this year without you. And a massive thank you to you. And you're going to hate that I've said that too. So I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, I'm going now. I'm going to leave. Just for that photo. No, thanks, Matt. I think what we've been able to achieve this year is really focus on I guess elevating what we do at the round table and also joining the dots a little bit more, having more time for our partners. So for me, it's about how we get the balance of some really good content. Matt, you're not. That was really happy. I was really happy you weren't sharing me anymore, but you then ended up sharing all our secrets on Zoom. Just um, the 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 I guess for me it was just about making sure that we continue to bring you guys the kind of content that you want. So do you fill in the survey? Do tell us what you think. Do tell us what you want. The sector and housing is dead diverse. We've got so much we can talk about. And I guess it's about when we talk to partners, we are inundated with people who want to sponsor and partner, which is fantastic. But it's making sure that they get what they need, and it's not a sales pitch. It's not them trying to flog you something you don't want or need. But they are really genuinely kind of wanting to engage and use our community to have that kind of conversation. But at the same time, we can continue to create a program that I guess it feels really different. So we're not just talking about the same things all of the time. And actually we make it perhaps look easier than it is by trying to balance where we've got people genuinely wanting to come on to talk about something that they're passionate about, but then making it so that everybody can feel as though they can contribute. So it's not too niche, it's not too specialist. And actually, it's in the spirit of kind of the values that we kind of instill. So part of that is a community, part of that is conversation, but part of that is about, daring to disagree. And Matt and I have been doing some work on our kind of values and what we stand for as a platform and kind of how we take that platform on tour. So, some of that is about being at events and representing the social housing roundtable. But also a lot of the stuff we've done has been kind of behind the scenes or kind of supporting other suppliers, organisations and partners to understand a little bit about how the sector works and what it needs and what the problems are and how we can get some solutions to it. So that's that's me in a nutshell, really. That's what I've been doing in the background all year.
Elaine and I have had many, many mornings meeting for coffees and going, okay, so what's our October plan? And this is in about June. So a massive thank you to you for all of your support and help. And also behind the scenes as our third member of the roundtable team is Megan. So Megan, putting administration support sounds really, really minimal. She's almost like the social housing roundtable PA in the background, helping with lots and lots of stuff. She supports me through the Access to Work scheme. She's an online business manager. She's absolutely brilliant, and she mainly actually works with female business leaders. So I'm very lucky to have her support. But if anyone is looking, please do let me know because I can make introductions to Megan. She's been amazing for us in the background and helps create the newsletters and does a whole bunch of other things for us as well. So some of the download stats this year, just for again some of you aficionados for those kind of things, we've had just over 6,000 audio downloads, which is more than double. It's nearly treble on last year. We did launch on Apple Podcasts, and that's gone really, really well. Our top three on audio were Our Law, How the Government is Taking It Forward, Managing WIP Repairs, which was with Duncan right back in January, and Survey Results, Benchmarking Kim, which was the Knowledge and Information Management session. But YouTube is still slightly ahead, though the audio is catching significantly. So nearly 8,000 views on YouTube, which is still a little bit mad. Again, Our Law was our top number, our number one there. Tenant satisfaction measures 1 year on came second. And then Our Law in Practice, which I believe was the CIH one with Dr. Eve Blethard. So those are just some of our top performing sessions of the year so far. And as Elaine alluded to, we genuinely wouldn't be here without our sponsors. We've had some of the survey results come back already, which has been fantastic, and thank you to the nearly 70 of you who've already been filling those in. One of the things some people have mentioned about is trying to change the time and change the time slots and those kind of things. I genuinely can't tell you how little basically Elaine and I we put a lot into this and we don't really get anything back. It's definitely a loss-making exercise, but we feel it's still worth it. We feel like it's adding enough value to all that we carry on. But without our partners and without those who've worked with me on a recruitment front, we wouldn't be here. So Alertical and CMSG, huge thank you to you both for being our annual sponsors this year. Case Management Solutions Group came on in March, April time of this year as our kind of lead sponsor, and we've been incredibly grateful to them. And Ben will be with us in January, which I'll come on to shortly. And Alertical, we've run a number of kind of our senior leadership sessions with throughout the course this year. But as you'll see, from Euronet, Breathe Pure, Repair My Home, Bell Group, Peterman's, Saint-Gobain, Digital Park, Black Country Housing Group, Voicescape, True Compliance, Devonshire SureServe, and I knew I should have put the name of the logo on, and I can't remember the name of the logo, and it'll come to me. The black left-hand side lane. I don't know if you recognise it.
Energy Park.
Energy Park. Thank you very, very much. Apologies.
For my own quiz.
For that was the one that you ran for us for running and for sponsoring us throughout the course of this year. So what did we learn? So we've tried to do a bit of a kind of wrap up of, I guess, some of the key themes and key thoughts that we took away from this year that a lot of you have shared with us and hopefully will help shape next year's. So we always look at word of the year, and I guess this year there were a number of themes that came out, and tenant voice, and I've put that intentionally in quotation marks because I think it is both got a positive and negative connotation to it. I think tenant voice is absolutely needed if you're going to make decisions, but there are still those who are kind of doing it as almost a tick box rather than actually utilising the tenant voice and trying to hear what's being said. And that balance between the two we will see continue throughout the course of 2026. Culture is still there, is absolutely one of our keywords, and AI has obviously come in and will probably be on there for the next few years. I'd be amazed if it wasn't. Our first kind of new word really that came along with bravery. I think that's something that's come up more and more. I think this idea that housing associations actually need to be brave enough to make decisions, brave enough to try something different, put their head above the parapet. And more importantly, if they think something's going to work, just go for it rather than just waiting to see what everybody else does first, because then no one's doing anything and we kind of get stuck. Change, goodness me, what a year for change we've had in terms of legislation. It's been absolutely huge this year. And I don't think that's really going to go away either. But change has been a huge, huge part of 2025. And you think of all the different, the competency conduct standards coming next year, but you think of all the standards we've had come in this year and now Ab's law and everything else, it hasn't been a minor one. And then risk. And again, this kind of ties into that point around bravery, but sitting on the board and being chair of the board, that risk management exercise is more scrutinized than maybe it's ever been. Are things going in the right direction? Can we afford to do that? Can we not afford to do that? Where do things sit? If we make this decision, what is the impact? And it's making us very, very risk averse. It's making us very kind of wary of, being that business is going to try something. And what if we're the next one to end up in inside housing or end up on the news? And maybe it's just better we don't do anything at all. And it just means nothing is moving forward at the speed that it needs to. And I think that really needs to change. Elaine, I'm going to pass over to you for kind of key themes and topics, because obviously this is something you helped us put together for this year.
Thanks, Matt. I think just on what you were saying there, I think what's really interesting is that, the regulator is certainly in England is telling us what to do more than ever as housing providers. And I think, it's tempting just to see compliance as the kind of the goal, rather than kind of the license to do business. And I think that's where kind of, change, bravery, risk all kind of come into play because actually, we talk to leaders a lot of the time within housing and understanding kind of what kind of leader you want to be, of what kind of organization you want to be is really important. And what you do with that and the resources that you have and the appetite that you have for newness and innovation and digital and tech and all of those things, it is going to be really important. And it has been really important this year, but I think it's going to be really important for next year. So just thinking about the kind of themes and topics and how the kind of, I guess, in the sector context and the kind of environment we're in now, urgent housing supply and affordability issues, absolutely that kind of supply and demand continues. And I think, thinking about new ways in which, we've had the prospectus from the government now on kind of what the social and affordable housing programme, there's an extra A in there that I wasn't used to, is kind of what that looks like now for a new build and actually kind of some opportunity to potentially extend funding to regeneration, which I think is really interesting. But again, rent convergence, all of those sorts of things that kind of balance that, with affordability issues and tenant sustainability is really important. So how do people maintain kind of, the challenges of cost of living and to continue to kind of afford to live well in their homes is really important. I guess, what kind of landlord you want to be is how much responsibility of that do you take on as a landlord and how much do you help and how can you afford to kind of help tenants kind of continue to live well in their homes. Safety, compliance and tenant wellbeing, again, I think is all really important. Back to basics, let's call it that. We're here to provide a safe asset as a landlord, and that's pretty much what we're there to do. That's the deal. We'll provide you a home. It needs to be safe. It needs to be secure, and actually, you need to be able to then help people live well in that. And I think that's where you kind of damper mold and you kind of the kind of extension of Aird law that we will see next year will come into play more as well. Future change and innovation. I think we've talked about AI already. Matt, is it a disruptor? Is it a help? Is it a hindrance? We're all getting our heads around it. I think what I see from landlords who are really kind of using it well, I guess, or embracing it and not afraid to kind of fail, but just putting those guardrails around it and encouraging people to use it. I think sometimes we feel bad, maybe it's cheating, but I think there are different ways in which we can use emerging tech and actually using as partners. I think we heard a lot from our sponsors this year and our partners this year around the power of partnerships and being able to share and spread that risk with experts. You don't need to be an AI expert. There's plenty out there that are willing to kind of help and try and make things happen for you. But I think it takes that culture shift as well. Gotta want to change, and keep up with what's happening next, and not be afraid to be cancelled, if you do take kind of extra risk. I can't remember if there was any more. Was it just three? I
There
think
were
it was just
three
three.
this time round. Yeah,
There we
there
go.
were.
I was expecting one more, but I don't know why. Uh, but back to
Well, I mean,
you.
the next one, I guess, was the point which more focuses on my day-to-day business of support, but is also, um, I think more broadly looking at recruitment, retention, and how the year is focused. And it's been a year, as I put there, focused on doing more with less. So we're seeing more mergers, we're seeing changing services, higher costs, less specialists. So it's becoming a more difficult time than ever to recruit. A lot of recruiters I know who are in the housing space have left the space. They've gone into other areas, or they're now double partnering with another area of recruitment. Internal teams have got better, don't get me wrong, but we're seeing teams. For a long time, we've said that we need more housing officers, and we absolutely still will need that. And there's still a huge desire to maybe reduce patch sizes and other things. But we're also seeing at the top end are more businesses that are merging more or downsizing their senior leadership teams or exec teams. And so there's a lot of people who've been brilliant and really helped this sector for years going, well, I don't know where to go and I don't know what to do. So they're leaving the sector. And so this wave of people kind of trying to progress up and through the systems and through our businesses is reducing all the time. But there is a lot of interest, conversely. So because of this, I speak must be 10 to 15 senior leaders a week in some form or another. They might be heads of, they might be assistant directors, directors, execs who are looking for a new challenge, who want to try something new. And what's really fascinating for me, I'm speaking to a lot of people who almost have a desire to go in and try and fix things. So they want to go in, or I'd love to go somewhere where something isn't working well, and I can be the one to go in and fix it or repair it or help it, whatever it will be. And that's almost converse to what's coming from the regulator, which is actually, we shouldn't be still facing these problems. We shouldn't be having these challenges. Execs should be going in to help kind of, help us grow and help us improve, not fix something that's broken. And I know a lot of tenants and residents that we've spoken with want to get rid of that kind of parental, paternal kind of mindset of, oh, they're here to look after us or here to be X, Y, Z. Well, conversely, there's a lot of people who want to go in and help have that kind of sense of fixing things and changing things and making lives better for people. That's how we attract people to the sector, with a sense of social value. So those things sometimes can be a bit interesting to kind of watch. And the other thing that we wanted to mention today was about conferences and in-person events. They're vital if they're run well. We've been to, Elaine and I can absolutely, I'm sure, and we won't do today, but can talk about a few times we've been to conferences or events where it's a bit of a talking shop. Really, there isn't much being said. You kind of talk around to the, talk, I guess, transferring over to this idea of, are we actually getting to the nub of anything? Are we getting to the crux of actually what needs to change? Or are we just here talking about something because we know there's a problem and we need 20 of us in the room to talk about, yeah, we're having the same problem and not getting anywhere with it? And we need a wide range of voices and for people to act on what's spoken about and hoping, yeah. And there's one I left off this, and it was, I'm deeply apologetic to the prop tech peer group because we did an amazing session with them, which involved independent tech providers coming together with landlords and all kind of sharing really why aren't we using smaller independent providers who can maybe deliver a lot of value, and why on the other side, where are the procurement challenges and where are the challenges more broadly, but also are we all facing the same kind of problems, and do we see it better having a lot of small providers all helping into one central system rather than one system saying I can do all of it, and the balances between the two. But at CIH Brighton this year, we ran, was it four, Elaine?
Three.
Elaine, is it three across the one day?
Yep.
Goodness me, can't
Three in one
remember.
day.
So on day one of CIH Brighton, we basically turned around to everybody there and said, what do you want to talk about tomorrow? And then the next day we ran those three roundtables. And they were amazing because we really got some proper debate out of those. And then we ran sessions at the Housing Community Summit this year. We've also worked with NetMag Media and Polypipe, along with Housing Insights and a couple of others, to run in-person sessions. But the joy I found from running them with both NetMag Media and Polypipe is you have about 20, 25 people around the table that are all from very different walks of life. So we'd have residents, we'd have people from local authorities, housing associations, we'd have people who were, say, professors in a particular field, we'd have people who were kind of entry level or new to the career, and those who've been in the career for years, and really sit there and debate it for about 4 or 5 hours. So they've been fantastic to be involved in. And Elaine, I think you're going to be doing one with them in next year. In next year. Sometime, whatever time I'm unable to do it. But do you want to talk a little bit about 2026, Elaine, and what you're seeing coming up? Alert Call return as one of the keynote sponsors for the Social Housing Roundtable in 2025 into 2026, and we're delighted to have them back. Alert will help as many people as possible feel safe, connected, and informed by combining ingenious technology and award-winning human contact. As you can see from this touchscreen I've got with me, Alertical's digital engagement solution helps social landlords proactively know their customers and properties by putting a portable touchscreen in every home, offering a daily property check through the optional OK Each Day service, plus repairs reporting, tenant surveys, and much more. They also provide Beyond Warden Call, an easier, simpler, and lower cost wireless warden call solution with video door entry, dispersed telecare, and smoke alarms. Alertical work with over 60 housing providers across the UK to enhance two-way engagement between customers and their landlords. In 2022, Alertical won the Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation, and in 2023, Alertical won Housing Supplier of the Year. We're delighted to have them back with us throughout the course of this year, and please do go check them out on social media and LinkedIn to find out more. Thank you very much, Alertical, for sponsoring us again.
Yeah, I think a lot of kind of, we've had a lot of spoilers for 2026 and 2025. We've got a lot of change that's going to come, certainly within kind of English regulation with the competency and conduct standard. And I think to your point, Matt, recruitment and retention is really important. But actually, if now you've got to hit a particular level, does that and how does that impact and affect internal promotion and succession planning if those people haven't got that qualification yet? Can they even level up? What does that look like? I think AIB's law will be extended into kind of phase two, so that moves kind of the definition of kind of hazards a little bit further. So you need to again really gear up for that. And actually, we had quite a lot of time to gear up for AIB's law, and now we haven't got a lot of time to gear up for the next phase. So, if we're not ready now, I don't think we're going to be ready then. And I think that's really important. I think, stock condition surveys, we've seen a lot of that within the first tranche of inspections, but I think the next tranche of inspections will probably focus on transparency, influence and accountability standard with some tweaks to the TSMs out for consultation now, but also things like the social tenants access to information request scheme that will go live in from October. Lots of things need to be changed, lots of things need to kind of move forward. And actually, I think more landlords are kind of seeing the value in understanding their data to help them make those decisions and they're kind of and those trade-offs. Because actually we won't be able to do everything and to be a good landlord and to hit above that kind of compliance threshold, you will need to make some decisions about where your resource is best spent, but also how risk averse you want to be with that, that surplus you're sitting on. What's the minimum look like for us, and what does that mean? I think throw into the mix, some uncertainty about kind of the rent convergence while we've got some rent settlement stuff, what the kind of future home standard would look like, that decent home standard 2 stuff as well. Are we including kind of what that looks like from a fabric first perspective or anything like that? So you've got your retrofit stuff, so you've got your asset management stuff, you've got your tech investment, you've got your processes and that kind of safety stuff still kind of really happening. It's a lot for landlords to do, and naturally what we're going to have to do is find a way in which to automate services, use tech to kind of deliver more flexibility to those who need it and free up that kind of human-centric stuff that kind of allows us to be really empathetic, really understanding, really sympathetic to those people who need kind of that human touch within our tenant base, within our customer base. But actually, I think we'll also see lots of mergers because what we're asking people to do is even more, potentially for a little bit less, it'd still be less, but we might be a little bit more. We might be able to do that. But how can we truly deliver value for money? How can we truly deliver kind of really effective and efficient services? I think it will have to be smarter operating models, and maybe they're through mergers. And I think it will have to be through partnerships, and I think it will have to be through tech. So that's I don't want to say predictions for 2026. I've just made it sound a bit scary. But there's a lot to do. And we have to be up for change rather than just fix the basics.
I couldn't agree more. But what's to come in January then for the roundtable? So hopefully this will give you an insight of where our first few sessions are going to be. We've already booked in January and February, which is wild, but February we're just confirming a couple of topics for people. So, and as Lucy's put in the chat there, not forgetting local government reorganisation for all local authority landlords. the fun we're going to have with that one, Lucy. Can't wait for that. And I know Jim and a couple others have made points, which I'm definitely going to allude to in a moment. But 6th of January. So usually we kick off with the risk register. To those who've been to the roundtable last year, that's always our kickoff. But we were very, very fortunate that Becky could step in for us last minute to do a session where one of our speakers had to drop out a few weeks ago. So we're instead kicking off 6th of January with Dr. Kelly Henderson and Debs Alderson from Addressing Domestic Abuse, coming on to talk about some of their new domestic abuse work they've been doing and some of their findings. So I really hope you can join us for that one. Particularly, unfortunately, hate to say it, with Christmas and New Year around the corner, I think it could be a very apt time to be talking about it. 13th of January, so Ben Hunt, one of our sponsors, we talked about CMSG, Case Management Solutions Group, earlier, is coming on to talk about ASB and data and what if the data is wrong. So that should be a very interesting session as well, judging with how well the ASB sessions have done in 2025. 21st of January, Jan Taranchuk, to those who've been around for a few years will recognise Jan, is coming on with Chloe Gallagher from Magna Housing to talk about fire safety and talking about how we can think about it in a more customer-centric model. And then finally, 28th of January, Catherine Brickle. If you haven't listened to Catherine before, she's an incredible speaker. She's written a book called Debt Trap Nation, which I definitely, if it isn't on your Christmas list, add it to it. She's brilliant. And she's going to be talking about temporary accommodation. We're finalising what kind of theme, because there's so many areas we can cover with it. It could well be on neurodiversity and what's going to cover there. So we're delighted to be welcoming Catherine to the table in the end of January. And there is very likely going to be one new member of the Social Housing Roundtable team. To those who don't know, basically Elaine is probably going to be running a couple of the sessions in January because I'm due my first newborn. So obviously we don't know the date yet because babies come when babies come. But in January I'll be taking 2 to 3 weeks off and maybe just coming on to do the occasional roundtable here and there. But yeah, my first baby is due in January. So we will have a new member of the team who won't ever be on a round table, but you might hear screaming in the background at some point if it's anything like like this family tends to be. So I'm going to leave this up for a second. Thank you for your congratulations in the chat. I can see those coming through. It's yeah, the earplugs are definitely already bought, Ted. Thank you. I'm going to leave this up for just a moment because there is a chance to win a £100 M&S hamper for Christmas. We'll make sure it's with you before Christmas, or we'll do our very best to anyway. If you can't follow the QR code, if you just go tinyurl.com/SHRT hamper, that's tinyurl.com/SHRT hamper, then you'll get the chance to fill that one in and come back to us. But I just want to take a quick break before we go to the quiz, which I think is the next slide is the quiz, if I remember rightly, just to kind of open it up to the floor a bit, see if anybody would like to share anything on what they'd like to see next year, if there's any themes they'd like to see, if there's any speakers they'd like to see, if there are any, I guess, ideas in general for what we'd like to see in 2025, 2026 even, or even thoughts just on this year and how you thought it's gone. So, Alicia, yes, I'll bring you in.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you all for the fantastic platform you have offered tenants. And I think the fact that Ted is your more prolific attendee says it all. It is probably one of the only platforms where we have been given equal opportunity to speak. And I say that knowing that James and I usually take it turns to be the first one to have something to say. I don't know that you actually understand just what a platform you've given us. It was probably this time last year that Sue, who unfortunately isn't here at the meeting today, who said to me, "You want to come to this place? It's amazing. We learn about all sorts of things. We get the same perspective as our landlords are getting, and we have a chance to have our say as well." So I just want to thank you. It's one of my favourite places. Even on days like today when I'm still sitting in my PJs and haven't got myself very organised. And, all the best for the year ahead. And as you all know, we have already been talking because I hope to be able to give something back to give the other side of a different perspective, let's say, in the new year, because I have something that I would like to hopefully talk about, something quite exciting. So just thank you. It's been amazing.
You're very, very welcome. We're certainly, hopefully definitely in the first quarter of the year, hopefully in February, we'll be seeing you on the table, Alicia. But I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Jim, I'll go to you, and then we've got Lara.
Yes, just like to back up exactly what Alicia said about the work you've done. I did post on LinkedIn stating all the stuff you've done throughout the year, which I think is amazing. And you have led the way in many, many ways for other webinars. But it's like you said before with conference, it's all being regurgitated back. Stuff you're doing, Devonshire's and all the rest of it. Everybody else sort of keeps on your heels a little bit, if you like. But that's not a bad thing. For the new year, I'd like you to take a look towards, if I was to be, suggest it, would be looking now towards the HMOs. If you look at Facebook and you see the distress being caused about HMOs being put into estates and things, what this will mean, to explain a little about it and how it works. The investment now coming in with ethical investments, overseas investment from the very guys who created the crash with the banks back in America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. And then you have Rachel Reeves blowing the trumpets on a budget, saying how there's all this new building going on in Birmingham, and saying, quoting Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, but not telling you they're doing it because they're going into the housing market. And my fear is that along with the grey belt, green belt, they don't seem to have much of an appetite to go for the brown belt. But these overseas investment organisations and groupings, they know when they invest in the UK housing market that after 10 years, they put the money in. And if the place needs any kind of retrofitting, because they've taken over the properties at the social housing, and that also the local authorities can't afford to keep the upkeep of, they will kind of buy them from them, then rent them back to them, and then they rent them to the tenants. So my question is, we need to be aware of, similar to the NHS with the PFIs, the private investment there, that the same thing doesn't start to happen very cynically through the back door with social housing. So I think the grey belt, green belt, all of those issues now coming up, sections 106, gateway, paragraph 1, where you've got to look at remediation. All these things now need to be looked at and brought ahead. Keeping our ABS law on the back burner, but we know with the warm home plans, all this needs to be looked at. So that's my suggestion. And thanks once again, and congratulations. I think that's brilliant news for you. Thank you, everybody. And Elaine as well. Sorry, you get neglected about me. Sorry.
That's right. Thanks, Jim. That's really kind of you. Thank you. And yeah, I definitely think, I agree with everything you've mentioned there. I think something on HMOs could be really, really interesting, because I've lived in HMOs. It was great. I was a young professional. I'd finished uni. I couldn't afford to buy my own place, and it was a fantastic option. But you're right, there is that kind of mindset with them now where they sit in society. So yeah, we'll definitely be looking at that one. Lara, lovely to have you with us.
Hi, Matt. Morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I want to echo the words of the last two speakers. I recommend this what we call it, roundtable, to everyone that I know who works in the sector, who's curious about the sector or wants to work in the sector. So I've seen that some of the people I recommended are actually listening today. So I think it's a great thing that you've put together, and I hope it grows from strength to strength to strength. I hope your first baby, otherwise known as the pet dog, is appreciative of the next baby that's coming. I actually wanted to say two things. Yeah, I think it's a great platform where the access to information is open, it's honest, and more importantly, it's equitable. There's no funneling, there's no gatekeeping, there's no interpretation. People come on here and say what they need to say, and if you like it or not, you can go home and digest it. And I really appreciate that here. And there's no real agenda either. It's not like you're doing this so that more people will buy apples from Tesco, or you're doing this because whatever, or because the regulator says you've got to do it. Because a lot of the stuff that other people do tends to be on the back of a very specific agenda. And then the last thing I wanted to say was that it might slightly contradicts the point you made earlier about talking shops. I've been having thoughts in my head about the nature, the definition of social housing lately. What actually is social housing? And does everyone that call themselves a social housing provider actually a social housing provider? So like James was just talking about HMOs for now. I mean, I think also all tenures of accommodation are required for various reasons. But we have for profit providers and the not-for-profit providers. we have co-ops, we have almshouses, we have traditional housing associations, we have the conglomerates that I call them, like places for people who do a whole bunch of stuff with a little bit of social housing. So it's just a thought that I have. What is social housing? Who is a social housing professional? Who is a social housing landlord? And does it matter if we actually know the answers to that question? So that one's going to be a talking shop, because we're not going to solve the problem, but it's just something that I've been thinking about lately. So that's me. Thank you, Matt.
No, you're very welcome. And I think that's a really, really important point to have a look at what is social housing. Elaine and I did a session earlier in the year on whether or not social housing needs to adopt a more kind of customer-centric mindset without using the word customer. And I'm not going down that route again, because I'm where we had a couple of things kick off. But that kind of idea of having a more customer-centric mindset in the way that we're delivering, because if a lot of providers had tenants who had the option to leave, they probably would, based on the level of service that's been delivered over the years, and that needs to shift as well. And you're right, when I did the intro to the team, I did forget, and I'm very glad he didn't know. But yeah, not introducing Clive as the fourth member of the Social Housing Roundtable team is appalling. So I thank you for joining the team, Clive, back in April. You have made my life innumerably better and far more challenging, but that's what happens when you rescue a 2.5-year-old Mastiff Staffy. So thank you, Lara, for bringing Clive up on the roundtable. Brian, I'll bring you in.
It's just something that strikes me is the communication. Within this group, you get ideas, you get suggestions, you get concepts that come across, and it's that communication. And Elaine said it earlier on, and in some cases, it's the basics. Do organizations need to go back to, and I remember a great prime minister using the term at one stage, back to basics. But is that something that, really needs to happen? That organizations need to look and say, right, we've got a job to do. Well, let's do that job before we start doing 15 other jobs along with it. And it's where the focus is. And if a lot of landlords and a lot of organizations can take forward this concept of actually having a conversation and understanding where people are coming from, it gives them an insight that they can then use. And it's the whole concept of this is to me is fantastic. Is you get these ideas, you get these suggestions, and social housing is something which needs to be there rather than something people want there. It has been part of, culture going back to Roundtree and the factories, and when people were provided with, somewhere to live so they could work in the factories. And that whole concept of community and getting together and understanding each other. And this, to me, gives that sort of opening for that to happen. And many organizations would benefit from being able to do that within their own organization. I've come across it where you've got people who are running to retire, to get out or to leave and to move somewhere else because they don't feel anybody listens to them. And it's the same with a lot of tenants. A lot of tenants just go quiet. What's the point in saying something because nobody's ever going to do it? And
what's really interesting on that one, Brian, is that like I said, the roundtable started during COVID, and it started because, and I know a couple of people have mentioned in the chat there that sales pitch disguised as webinars for good, grind my gears, and where did it start? And I mean, and I've been open about this. I was working in recruitment. The recruitment market died during COVID, and I want to keep in touch with people for two reasons. One, to find out where the pain points were, and two, in those early days, so if recruitment did pick back up, people remembered who I was and that I was showing I was at least doing something a bit different. And then since then, this has grown into the one area people know me for, and forget that actually recruitment is the area that I do to keep the lights on. But that's fine. That's the nature of the beast. But the reason I raise this is because about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a very early roundtable, Lara came on when she was president of the CIH and was talking about whether or not there was a glass ceiling in housing. Was there a glass ceiling, particularly around BMI, particularly around kind of in an EDI perspective? Was there a glass ceiling? And two things have always stuck out for me from then. A, it was one of our busiest roundtables of the year. I guess three things, including that bit. But the two things that really stand out were that first and foremost, other than myself, and there were about 50, 55 people in the room. There was only one other white person who came along. First and foremost, one other white guy, and he was a chief exec, and he is chief exec of a housing provider. And he went, I need to learn what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And the other side was everybody said, I thought it was just me. And that's exactly on your point, just that I thought it was just me thinking this way, because it's so easy to get siloed when you feel like you're hitting a bit of a wall. And so one of the things we're very glad the Roundtable has done, hopefully, is bring some of your voices together and realise that actually there are communities that can be built. And I know Alicia's just said in the group there, that in the chat, that my life is enriched by a conversation with a certain Irishman living in Barnsley. And you know, Alicia and Brian, I know you guys have come together through platforms like this and through chats. And you know, Joe has mentioned in the chat, what is social housing discussion in light of recent crisis report would be helpful. And you know, we're just here to try and help in the best way we can. But that's why Elaine had to come on, because unfortunately it meant that I was basically not affording to keep the lights on. And she went, Matt, people will give you a bit of cash to help keep this running. You've just got to find the right way to do it. And I'm glad that, and I really hope from feedback that people have never felt like people are coming on just to pitch at you and you felt that way, but that it's kept its original core purpose, and that's what we work together with people for. David, I'll bring you in because I want to make sure we got time for this quick quiz. Yeah, I'm going David, then I'll go Jim, and then we'll, unless anyone else raises their hand, we'll go to the quiz. But David, over to you. You're still on mute at the moment, sir. Oh, you're on mute. There we are. Lovely.
Am I there now?
Yeah, you're good.
Great, thanks very much. I've knocked myself off my own screen now, so I can't see. First of all, apologies for being late. I was on a client call for the first half hour, and so I've really sort of just pitched into the middle. And I think it's great. First of all, as everyone has said, Matt and Elaine, you know, it's great what you do, and for all the reasons that people have said, and I won't repeat them. You know, I come here to learn things, and you know, and so on. I just want to pick up on something that I just heard Laura raise about what social housing is, and she's quite right. It's something that needs a bigger discussion. But there's something really important that has been on my mind in a sense, which I want to share, which is that when we talk about people in their homes, and people needing to be safe in their homes, whether that's fire safety, whether that's damp and mold, whether that's any of the other things which we primarily concern about. There's always been a question, I think, in my mind about, well, why should people in social housing be more entitled to any of this than anyone in any other type of housing? And of course the answer is that no one should be more entitled than anyone else to feel safe in their homes. Having been involved with the social housing sector for over 30 years now, one of the things that I have always often felt, is that sometimes in social housing, not always, but sometimes in social housing, we're the people who actually set that standard. We actually are often the beacon. We get things wrong for sure, but you know, when it comes to, when you look at what's going on in the private rented sector, I know there are people on this call who are involved with the private rented sector, where for a long time a lot of tenants in the private sector had a really bad deal in so many ways, on affordability, on the condition of their homes, and so on. That is taken so much more seriously now in the private sector. It could be better, but some of that has come because of the beacons in the social housing sector and what people on that side have learned from what's going on our side. So I think for that reason alone, it would be a reason to really preserve social housing. Well done to you and to everybody for everything you're doing.
Thank you very, very much, David. Jim, a quick last point from you before we go to the quiz, but thank you, David.
Yeah, okay. Well, basically, just to say that there may well be other platforms out there that may well use it as a position of strength to gain financial gain. But you remember last year when this was brought up, and I wrote that piece in LinkedIn regarding yourself and how you do it so selflessly. And I just want to reiterate that once again. Yes, perhaps you get these endorsements from the likes of James Batchelor, OK, Dale Erticall and others, but that is only to make it a free point of entry for ourselves to still enjoy this great opportunity and service. So very unfair if anybody feels that way. I can definitely categorically say that's not the case. As far as law is concerned, I remember when she was president and voting for her, and with CIH, and the Walk in Your Shoes campaign that you did, which again was very impressive. And I think that really, in a lot of ways, assisted Kai in her movement with the seats at the table. I think that encouraged Kai's platform. So I would say there's a lot of great stuff going on out here, and especially the likes of Alicia and Sue working with Jan, with the fire and things like that. So there's great stuff. There's been great feedback over the years, and just to thank you all very much indeed. I will be easing up a little bit last year because I want to try and do a bit for myself. All right, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Jim. Elaine, just before I go to the quiz, are there any comments from you? Because I don't know about you, I'm feeling a little bit humbled by all of that.
Yeah, it's just, I mean,
you know me, I don't like feedback for this because I just get all.
Yeah, you can have you just get have a drink, have a sip. No, I think, it's always fantastic to hear, and we don't do this under year wrap up, so you tell us how great we are. It's always nice to hear that though. I think, for me, I still feel a bit of an imposter because I've only been here 18 months, but I think what Matt has built and what we continue to build, and hopefully, next year, without too much spoilers, we've got lots planned. It's really exciting. We're already speaking to people about kind of March, April, May now, and what that looks like. We'll be at Housing Digital in 2026. We'll be at a number of other events as well. As the Social Housing Roundtable, which is really important. But it's just a big thank you because actually, we created a strap line when I first came on about, creating a community from the conversations that matter. And that is what I genuinely have heard you tell me that we've created. And I really appreciate, Jim and others, those who kind of recognise that actually we do really want to keep it free for all to attend. We don't want to put any kind of cost barriers in the way, but we do have to. Matt has got an extra amount to feed in January. So, and I think these are, we want to keep it as kind of free and as kind of fair as for all. So I think it's fantastic that kind of we're getting that feedback. So just a big thank you, really, and a big thank you to Matt as well, because it's hard to do this every week, and I find the enthusiasm every week to do it because social housing has not been an easy place to work, and it's frustrating, and it's challenging, but it's also something that we're really passionate about. And actually, as a kind of self-professed social housing fangirl, I want social housing to continue. I want it to be, the start of something for people, and kind of, I think it's dead important, and I think we should protect it. But I think we do need to be changed to do that. So look forward to more conversations in 2026. Do your quiz, have your tipple, enjoy yourself. Merry Christmas. I won't say any more. But thank you. I love being here. Thanks for having me.
Case Management Solution Group, or CMSG, are the home of React, the UK's #1 case management system for ASB and community safety. We are delighted to have them as one of our key sponsors for Social Housing Roundtable 2025 into 2026. And with the ASB app now fully integrated to the platform, it allows residents to record, monitor and report issues directly to their case office in live time. What's not to love? CMSG are bringing simplicity back to case management, and I cannot recommend them enough and thank them for all of their support through this period and through the rest of the year. Thank you, CMSG, and do please go check them out on social media and on LinkedIn. Thank you. Well, as I say, we couldn't do it without you. So, right. Well, I don't like compliments, so I'm going to get straight on with the quiz. So thank you all. Thank you, genuinely. That meant a lot. My Christmas tipple is always port. So I've always got a little glass of port for the Christmas quiz. If you've got anything, great. If you haven't, don't worry about it. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's still 9 days till Christmas. A few questions coming through. We'll whistle through them because we've got about 10 minutes to try and do questions and answers. So you're going to get me working at, not quite double speed, but fairly decent speed. So question 1, which UK monarch first broadcast the traditional Christmas Day message on the radio in 1932? Don't put the answers in the chat box. Note them down, and we'll see who gets the most at the end. Because I know people do sometimes stick them in there or shout them out, and then I'm like, well, it doesn't really work. To those who don't know, I was a quiz master in my previous life, hence why I always do a quiz. Question 2.
Are we
What-
allowed to use a ChatGPT or not? Or
Arguably not,
or
Lara.
Google or
It's your general knowledge, but I mean, I'm not going to know if you cheat.
all right, then fair enough.
I have done this as a Christmas social housing quiz. There are a few social housing questions in there, which I'm sure a number of you will be delighted by, because obviously your knowledge of social housing by now is going to be astounding. What is the collective name for the major government grant programme aimed at helping social housing providers meet the EPC Band C target by retrofitting existing homes to improve energy efficiency? Should have put a comma in that sentence. That one's fine.
I don't even think ChatGPT knows the answer to that one.
I'll give you a second jot down an answer. In Charles Dickens' classic A Christmas Carol, what is the name of Scrooge's deceased business partner whose ghost visits him first? Question 4. By the 31st of March 2025, the regulator of social housing reported that approximately how many total homes are provided across the social housing sector? Alicia, if you don't get this, I'll be stunned. That was a clue as well to anybody who's been to a number of these. Think of something that Alicia is heavily involved in. Might help. Might help. Okay. Question 5. What is the name of the Victorian confectioner who is generally credited with inventing the Christmas cracker in the 1840s? Was it Charles Fortnum, Tom Smith, John Cadbury, or Henry Nestle? I don't know if it was Nestle back then, but I'm assuming it was Nestle. Very weird doing a quiz when you can't hear anybody at all. You're just kind of speaking into the ether, but I'm hoping that, people have got some answers. Get that one through. Question 6. The introduction of the 4-day emergency repair timescale became a key proposal within which major piece of legislation for the social housing sector this year? Spoken like Nestles, apparently, Ted says. Good to know. The introduction of the 4-day emergency repair timescale became a key proposal within which major piece of legislation for the social housing sector? Should probably know that bit. Number 7. Traditionally, what savoury ingredient was used as a primary filling in a medieval mince pie? Was it dried fruit? Was it marzipan? Was it chopped nuts? Or was it cooked meat? I don't know why I haven't put a gap between marzipan and chopped nuts there. Apologies. But I'm sure you can still read it. Close that one down there. So traditionally, what savoury ingredient was used as a primary filling in a medieval mince pie? 8. What was the name, or what is the name of Julie Hayden's CIH presidential campaign that she launched as part of the roundtable? Joined us this year. What is the name of this year's CIH campaign? See who was listening. Give everyone a second to answer that one. That's gone off. What's that one? Ooh. Oh, Ted, don't worry too much at all. It's generally one of those. Number 9, what item of clothing is given to the boy's mother by the flying snowman in the animated movie? We're talking of the original, because I know they remade it, but I haven't seen the remake, so... what item of clothing? I'd say bonus point for a colour, but that's what I've got. And number 10, what date is the 12th night celebrated on? What date is the 12th night celebrated on? And I can see Lara eyeing up a calendar in the corner. Having your camera on during a quiz. Cool, so I didn't do an answer sheet because I did have it and then I deleted it and then I forgot to put it back in. So we'll go through the answers, mark your own because I can't get you to swap. I'm definitely on one this morning. I've even had a bit of me tipple. I have a bit of me tipple. Right, happy Christmas. So, which UK monarch first broadcast the traditional Christmas Day message on the radio in 1932? George V. George V. Yeah, cool. It's weird. I'm just getting thumbs up on the thing. And normally, like hearing groans or like, "Oh, I should have known that," or whatever you do when you had a quiz, and just did nothing. What is the collective name for the major government grant program? Yada yada yada. EPC Plan C. Warm Homes Social Housing Fund is what I've got. Feel free to challenge if I get any of these slightly off, because might do. In Charles Dickens' classic A Christmas Carol, Scrooge's deceased business partner was Jacob Marley. I can see the celebrations from Lara. I can see the beret going in the airs. By 31st of March 2025, the regulator of social housing reported that 4.5 million homes. And if you haven't checked out their campaign, please do so, because it's really, really good. But yeah, 4.5 million homes was where we are at the moment. I can see the chat going through. CA Law Part 2. I see you're answering the questions. I was like going, I thought it was something different there. 5. The name of the Victorian confectioner generally credited with inventing the Christmas cracker is Tom Smith. Pretty boring. Really boring. And the others were obviously in there as you'll know the confectioner. But no, Tom Smith. Good old Tom. The introduction of the 4-day emergency repair timescale. Now, I didn't think this was Arab's law, but I was told it was Arab's law. So, is it Arab's law? Okay, we're going with Arab's law. That's fine. I'm getting nods from everyone else. For some reason in my head, I had it down to something else in my head, and I was like, am I wrong here? Arab's law. Traditionally, the savoury ingredient in medieval mince pies was cooked meat. It was more like a pork pie. Don't say no to pork pie at Christmas. I can see Elaine. I quite like a pork pie. Oh, Elaine doesn't like a pork pie. Oh, sausage roll?
Pigs in blanket.
Yeah, but
just meat on meat. Or like a regular mince pie. If someone said to me, "Do you want a mince pie?" and it's pork pie, I'll be well unhappy.
Yeah, but if you got a pork pie, would you be unhappy if someone offered you a pork pie?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
It's actually the reason that we use suet in mince pies now. That's where the throwback comes from.
Oh.
There you go. See? Yeah, good enough quiz, me. That's it, yeah.
I think we need to recruit Kate next year.
Isn't there a clue in the name, mince?
I think we're recruiting Kate next year for the quiz, Matt. So
I say, in she comes. I've got space on the quiz team. It's great. Got a Christmas quiz tomorrow night. The name of Julie Hayden's CIH presidential campaign is Rooted in Resilience. Rooted in Resilience. If you haven't checked that out, please do, because it's excellent. And Julie came on to do the roundtable 2024, and then we did the VP special, which Evie has obviously won, and then we had the presidential campaign in launch in 2025. So we've done a fair bit with the CIH over the last 12-18 months. The item of clothing given to the boy's mother was a scarf. The scarf. And I'm going to double check this because I'm pretty sure I know, and I'm just doubting myself because if I say it wrong, then you've all got a recording. So the 12th night is the 5th of January. It's the 5th. Oh, Jim's saying no.
It's the 6th.
Wow.
12 days.
Well, it's saying it's on
That's why you take your Christmas decorations down by the 6th, otherwise it's bad luck.
Yeah, so marking the final night of the Christmas season, Epiphany is the 6th. 12th night is apparently the 5th.
Yeah.
Alexa says it's the 5th of January.
Yeah, there we are.
Yes, fair enough. I stand corrected. I got it
wrong. So feel free to put your scores in the chat. We'll see who won, see if anybody won or whatever it went.
Remember that.
Thanks, Morris. Yeah, apparently I'm getting baby drained. Don't quite know how that one works. It's all kind of... There was someone who I was speaking to on our NCT class, like, is anyone else getting cramps? I was like, no. He's like, I think it's because my partner is. I was like, I think you're mad. But it's fine. 4 Vice Kate with a 7. You tell it's hard if Kate gets a 7, judging by her knowledge already. 4-15 from Caritas. Well done. Flew it. Absolutely smashed it out of the park. Agatha's going to steal the quiz. Feel free to. Jennifer's got 6, but we learned stuff. Helen with a 7. Amazing. Well, look, just from Elaine and I, from Megan, from Clive, from everybody at the Social Housing Roundtable, a huge, huge thank you to you all. If you do want to get in touch over the next month, weeks, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is, it's the Social Housing Roundtable at outlook.com. We kept it as simple as possible. There will be a website at some point, hopefully, and there's other stuff we're going to plan on doing, but please don't put any kind of dates or expectations on us, because we dared do it, and I just saw Elaine's eyes go wide there going, you said you weren't going to mention this. But we've got plenty planned, lots and lots and lots to come in the new year that I'm hoping will add even more value to all. But for now, have a wonderful Christmas, however you're celebrating, enjoy your winter break, and from all of us at the round table, a very, very happy Christmas. Thank you, everybody, and cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. See you, Helen. Bye, everyone.
Merry
Christmas, everyone.
James.
Bye, Alicia and everyone.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Enjoy. Stay safe.